Hola amigos, en este video vamos a mirar los verbos de sandalia. So we're looking at sandal verbs, aka stem changing verbs in the preterite. I've also heard them called slipper verbs as a nickname, and I'm going to explain to you why they are called that. This little rule right here is in order for a verb to be a sandal verb or a stem changing verb in the preterite, it must also be an IR verb and a boot verb or a stem changing verb in the present tense. So if it's an AR or ER verb, it cannot be a preterite stem changing verb. If it's an IR verb, but not a stem changing verb in the present tense, it also cannot be a stem changing verb in the preterite. So for example, vivir, while it's an IR verb, it is not a stem changing verb in the present tense, so therefore it cannot be a stem changing verb in the preterite. I'm going to give you some examples right here of some preterite stem changing verbs over here on the left. So servir, preferir, pedir, competir, repetir, morir, and dormir, to serve, to prefer, to ask for or order, to compete, to repeat, to die, and to sleep. These things right here next to it, what in your books, if you have a textbook, sometimes you might notice these parentheses with an E-I or an E-IE next to them. What that means is that in the present tense, it's a stem changing verb where the E changes to an I, and in the preterite, it's a stem changing verb where the E changes to an I. Preferir is an E to IE in the present tense, but in the preterite, it's an E to an I. And then also down here we have morir and dormir, we're going to go to an O to a UE in the present tense, or an O to a U in the preterite. And again, I'm going to show you some of those in just a second here. So, preferir in the present tense looks like this. You'll notice that the E changes to an IE in these 1, 2, 3, 4 positions. So that's where we get the boot from. But it does not change an E to an I in these two over here. In the preterite, the preterito, the reason we call it a sandal verb is because it just affects the bottom two. So the boot kind of goes away and we just have the bottom part. So you notice that right here and right here, that E changes to an I. If you've already learned to conjugate verbs in the preterite, the regular verbs, you've already learned these endings right here. Like comer, for example, is comi, comiste, comió, comimos, comistes, and comieron. If your teacher doesn't teach you the preterite version of the verb, or they do and you're having trouble remembering it, oh, I just realized that this one over here was wrong. Oh no, that's right, never mind. The easier way to remember it is to ask yourself, what is the Vosotros form of the preterite? Well, all you have to do is add is or is to the end of the to form of the verb, and you will always get the correct Vosotros form of the verb in the preterite, no matter if it's a regular or an irregular verb. It doesn't really matter. So again, the sandal just affects these bottom two, and not all four, like a present tense boot verb. So what I want you to do right now, if you want to do it, you don't have to, is pause the video, maybe try it yourself, see if you can conjugate this verb servir in both the present tense and into the preterite. Servir is an E to an I verb in the present tense, and it's an E to an I verb in the preterite. So pause the video, because in about 3 seconds I'm going to show you the answers to these, or how to conjugate these verbs correctly. Okay, moving down. They're right here for you. So in the present tense, it looks like this: sirvo, sirves, sirve, servimos, servis, and sirven. Notice that the E changes to an I in those 4 positions, whereas in the preterite, it's a sandal verb, so just the bottom two, that E changes to an I right here. I do want to make a note of some verbs that are kind of like sandal verbs, but they don't fall under that same rule or category necessarily. They're just kind of irregular, but they have a change in just the bottom two like a sandal verb does. So these verbs are oír, creer, and leer. So what happens is in the preterite, this verb oír, if it were regular, it would look like this: O-I-O. But that doesn't work well for the Spanish-speaking world. So what happens is that I changes to a Y. You may have also seen that when you learned the present progressive form of the verb, where you're talking about like I am reading the book, and we change the word leer to reading, which looks like this, leyendo. Oh man, that jumped way down there. Sorry about that. Leyendo. So that I again changes to a Y. If you haven't learned that, this is another day, so don't worry about it. But if you want to learn more about that, it's called the present progressive. So these ones, just the bottom ones, that I changes to a Y, and I thought I'd just point that out to you. So I'm going to have a practice activity for you, and that practice activity will involve these 3 verbs right here: oír, creer, and leer, and all of these verbs up here as well. So if you want to jot those down, you can, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to the activity, which has 10 sentences, and I want to see if you can conjugate those verbs correctly into the preterite, and then in about 3 seconds, I am going to read the answers to you. So pause the video if you want to do this activity. By the way, before I move down to the answers, this document is available to you in the description of the video. If you want to download it, print it off, take it with you, do some practice, or whatever, you are welcome to do so. So here come the answers. Mi maestro siempre repitió el vocabulario. 2. Los meseros sirvieron la comida. If you're curious what the sentences mean, my teacher always repeated the vocabulary. The waiters, served the food. 3. Tú dormiste bien anoche. You slept well last night. 4. Ellos oyeron las noticias. They heard the news. 5. Desafortunadamente, mi gato murió ayer. Unfortunately, my cat died yesterday. 6. Mi hermano prefirió el videojuego nuevo. My brother preferred the new video game. 7. Yo no te creí. I did not believe you. 8. Mi novia pidió la ensalada de fruta. My girlfriend ordered the fruit salad. Yummy, yummy. 9. La clase y yo competimos en un concurso. Class and I competed in a contest. Y finalmente el número 10. El estudiante leyó la lectura. The student read the lesson. If you got any of these wrong and you're not sure why, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.